Okay, so this is Chopin's Raindrop Prelude. I'm playing it in celebration of this lovely, rainy New England morning we're having. So the whole point of this video is to get down into the roots and analyze this piece. I want to show you exactly how you can stop relying so much on sheet music and start to make sense of these notes that you're playing. Instead of 100 notes all strung together, I want to reduce it down to a few different concepts. Let's go ahead and get started. So we're in the key of D flat major. If you choose any note on the piano and you follow this set of whole steps and half steps, you will end up with the major scale. This is the formula to form all major scales. Here's D flat. If we go up a whole step, another whole step, then a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, we end up with the major scale. Here's D flat, here's the root. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. This is D flat major. And this is going to determine the chords that we play throughout this piece. So the first two chords of the piece are D flat major and A flat major. Let's go ahead and look at D flat major first. There's two ways to look at any triad. A triad is a 3-note chord. The first way, and I think the best way to do it, is to first learn the major scale of the same root and extract the first, third, and fifth scale degrees. We just learned how to form D flat major. If we extract the first scale degree, the third scale degree, and the fifth scale degree, we end up with the major triad. Here's D flat major. So there's another way to form chords as well. We can look at the intervals between each of the notes, or the distances between each of the notes. So the distance between D flat and F is a major third, and the distance between D flat and A flat is a perfect fifth. All major triads follow this formula. Major third, perfect fifth. We can go ahead and apply this to A flat major. Okay, so do we have a major third and a perfect fifth? We do. Now, what actually constitutes a major third and a perfect fifth? It's the distance between the notes. And what is that distance? 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps. There's 4 half steps between A flat and C. There are 7 half steps between A flat and E flat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, the reason that I don't like only using intervals is because these whole steps and half steps, these help calculate the intervals, but they're named off of and they are based off of the major scale. So here's A flat, and I do want to also form the major scale of A flat. Here's A flat, whole step, sorry, let me restart there. Here's A flat, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. If we take this major scale, we play the first note, third note, and fifth note, we end up with that major triad. So this way, we approach it from two different angles, from the scale and with the intervals. Okay, we have D flat major and A flat major. Arguably the simplest concept, but the most difficult to actually execute, is inversions. Inversions are where we rearrange the notes of a chord or just play it in different positions. I can play D flat major anywhere. I can play it here, or here, 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 here. You get the idea. How do we go about doing this? If we don't learn how to invert these chords, we're just locked into root position. Root position is how we learn to form all the chords. That's where the root is the bottom note. What if the root wasn't the bottom note? What if we took the root, we kept the third and fifth exactly where they are, and we brought that root up an octave? We have now rearranged that chord. We've inverted the chord. This is now first inversion. Okay, we can do this again. Let's keep the fifth and the root where they are now, and let's take that third, which is the bottom note, and bring it up an octave. This is second inversion. If we do the same process again, take the fifth, bring it up to the top, bring it up an octave, it is now the top note. We've returned to root position. So we can do this up the keyboard, we can do this down the keyboard. Here's root position, second inversion, first inversion, and root position. This applies to all chords, no matter how many notes are in that chord. Let's go to A flat major. Here is A flat, and we can invert it to first inversion, then second inversion. And we're back to root position now. So let's go back down. Let's go ahead and form our first minor triad, A flat minor. The only difference between A flat minor and A flat major is the middle note. So if we lower this middle note in A flat major by a half step and play a C flat instead of a C, this becomes a minor triad. There's a different interval. The interval between A flat and C flat is a minor third, and that is 3 half steps as opposed to 4. So let's take A flat major and go up 1, 2, 3 half steps. Here we have A flat minor. So we first took a look at the intervals. Now we can look at the scale. This is based off of its own scale. It's based off of the A flat natural minor scale. It is the first, third, and fifth notes of that scale, the first, third, and fifth scale degrees. Just like all other chords, we can learn how to invert this up and down the keyboard and play it in different positions. Root position, first inversion, second inversion, back to root position, both up and down. The final chord that we're going to form is G flat major. Let's first take a look at, why not take a look at the scale first? Let's form the major scale of G flat. What are the first, third, and fifth scale degrees? G flat is the first, B flat is the third, and D flat is the fifth. Okay, we have a major third between G flat and B flat, and we have a perfect fifth between G flat and D flat. Again, let's take it and rearrange it. Let's move it up and down. Root position, first inversion, second inversion, root. Okay, we are in really good shape. We can go ahead and take a look at the piece again. So now that we have all of these chords, let's go ahead and apply them directly to the piece of music. We're first going to start, of course, with the D flat major triad. This is the tonic. This is the home base of the piece of music. This is D flat major. Do you see the notes? D flat, F, and A flat. The reason that it might look less familiar than this root position triad is because it's dispersed across a wider range on the keyboard. But all the notes remain the same. We then move to a new chord. This is a flat dominant 7 chord, and we didn't form this during the formation of the chords in the video, but all we have to do to form that chord is to add a minor 7 interval to the already existing A flat major triad. So what's the A flat major scale? If we take the 7th scale degree and lower it by a half step, this forms a certain interval. But the interval between A flat and G flat is a minor 7. If we add this minor 7 to the already existing A flat major triad, this forms a new chord. It forms a 7 chord, specifically the A flat dominant 7, and this is what we're seeing in the piece. This is where that G flat comes into play, and that's how we can analyze it. Briefly back to D flat major, back to A flat major 7. And we return back to the tonic, D flat major. What did we do here? We went from the tonic to the dominant function. We stepped outside of the home base to a new quality, to the dominant quality. That has sort of like a tense sound. We don't want to hang out here for too long. It wants to go somewhere. It wants to go back home. So let's keep going with the piece. Here's D flat major. A flat dominant 7. D flat major back to A flat. Returns back home to D flat major. Now we're using an A flat major chord. Suddenly, that A flat major chord becomes an A flat minor. What is this all about? Let's try to figure out what's going on here. The next chord is D flat dominant 7. D flat dominant 7, just like A flat dominant 7, is a modification of its triad. D flat major can be turned into a 7 chord, and so if we add the minor 7 scale degree, the flatted 7 scale degree of the D flat major scale, that note being C flat, we can go ahead and form the D dominant 7 chord. This is what we see here. This then goes to a G flat major. What's going on here? So the reason that I want to really zero in on this is because suddenly we have played a chord, A flat minor, that is outside of the key of D flat major. Up until this point, every single chord has used the component notes of the D flat major scale. D, F, and A, the notes of the D flat major triad, are all in the key of D. How about A flat major as well as A flat dominant 7? All of these notes are again in the scale. Suddenly, now we've come across a chord that does not have one of the notes of the D flat major scale. C flat is not a part of the D flat major scale. So how do we make sense of that? Okay. We're temporarily going to look at a new scale here. We're going to look at the G flat major scale. The G flat major scale is brought into, the reason I'm bringing it up is because that's what this chord is going to. We're going to set up a 2-5-1. So in the key of G flat major, the 2 chord, or the second scale degree, is going to be A flat. Now, if I use the notes of the G flat major scale in order to form a new triad, that triad has to be minor. Otherwise, it wouldn't fit into the scale. A major does not fit into the G flat major scale because there is a C flat. Okay, let's look at that next chord, D flat dominant 7. Does this fall into the D flat major scale? No, it doesn't, because we have a non-diatonic note. We have a note outside of that scale. This also falls into the key of G flat major. D, F, A flat, and C flat. Where does this go to? It goes to G flat major. Now, I'm not making the case that this is a modulation. I'm just trying to make the case that these chords work together to create a certain structure. They're not just randomly chosen. We see this in other genres, especially jazz, all the time. But it's not common to bring up chord progressions or certain chord patterns within classical music. And I certainly wasn't taught this when I was learning the piece. So that's where these new flats and these new structures are coming into play. Let's go ahead and just recap that one more time. A flat minor is not in the key of D flat major. It's actually a part of a different key. Let's figure out where it's going to go in order to figure out what key that's going to be. We go to D flat dominant 7. Similar idea here. We still have that C flat. Where is this going to go? Oh, it goes to G flat major. This is an example of intellectual memory and how we can improve our intellectual memory. If you were to write down all of the notes of a piece of music with 100% accuracy and all of the rhythms, you can demonstrate perfect intellectual memory. But that's not what it's all about. Intellectual memory is also learning the concepts that explain the relationship between the notes. Because when we give these note structures, they become a lot easier to understand. They're a lot more predictable. And especially the best example of that is when you read a piece of music, rather than identifying each individual note and trying to figure out a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 note chord, you might be able to pick out a couple and make an assumption based off of the scale, based off of the context of these existing notes, and figure out what it's going to be. In this case, we have an A flat minor chord. Again, that just goes to show how these concepts help us. So if you want to dive deep and have this, take these concepts and apply it to your own piece and really get into it and dive deep and get at what the roots are, go ahead and check out Fundamentals. That is the resource that I created for my students in order to help them learn all these concepts. That's really my best work. I created each individual diagram, and there's almost 1,000 of those in there. It shows every scale, every chord, and every inversions. Every chord up into 7 chords, how to invert them, how to rearrange them like we did across the keyboard. If you want to take your playing to the next level and you want to start diving into these concepts, that's your go-to. But again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time, and happy practicing.